So I'm just going to get started with our housekeeping items here. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Workforce Wednesday webinar. We have quite the treat during this digital literacy series. It's going to be more workshop, more interactive, some potential breakout rooms on future sessions. So we're excited that you've registered for today and for hopefully the whole series as a whole. We'll be putting links to the second workshop webinar that will be happening next week, I believe, and we will put that in the chat towards the end of the session. If you haven't registered yet, definitely make sure you do. And we're excited for you all to participate with us today. So a little bit about me and our center. So my name is Kirsten Bayer. I am the Assistant Director of Communications with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, or ICSPS. It is quite the mouthful. And we sit on the WIOA Professional Development Committee and help facilitate with all of the title partners. So you potentially have heard of us before. We also host and facilitate the WIOA Summit, which is coming up this April. So we hope to see you all there and join us. Registration is out if you'd like to register. And today we will have this session being recorded. It's recording right now. And so you can share it out or you can reference it back on our website. It will be available on our website to you through a link that will be sent out in a follow-up email. And in that follow-up email will also be a link to a follow-up survey. And I do encourage your participation on the follow-up survey. I know they can be tedious, but it is a great way for the committee to get direct feedback from all of you and analytics. So that way I can bring that information to the WIOA Professional Development Committee, and it helps us to plan future professional development and also just make sure that we're really meeting the system's needs where you all are at for what you need in professional development. And so this was a topic that we felt was heavily important as a lot of states are having digital literacy initiatives that are coming into play. And so we're joined today by Jeff Gumas and Jamie Harris. I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in a second. For the housekeeping today, we do encourage your participation. We ask that everyone leave yourself muted while the presentation is going on, but there's going to be opportunities throughout the presentation and at the end for discussion and for Q&A. And so we highly encourage you to participate then and really take notes and participate. We're going to put the slide deck today in the chat momentarily if you'd like to download it and follow along or use it to take notes with the presenters. And then, like I said, this is being recorded and we do have closed captioning on for accessibility reasons or even just for note-taking purposes. Sometimes I like to save the transcript for that. And then we're just going to do our beginning Workforce Wednesday webinar polls. If you've ever participated in one of these, you're probably very familiar with these polls, but again, it just helps the committee kind of gauge what audience and that we're making sure we're reaching across the state as the whole state is our audience for these webinars. And so we just like to know where is your local area today, so feel free to participate in that. I am joining you from Central Illinois, so I live in the Peoria area. And I know Jeff and Jamie are joining us from out of state, so they can touch more about that.
I'm actually in Chicago.
Oh, well, just kidding, Jeff. That is in state. It is. It qualifies.
It is.
Oh, we have someone joining us from Maine who typed in the chat, so that's awesome. Yeah, and feel free to type in the chat and say good morning to us. We welcome that participation. Okay, I'll go ahead and end that poll and share the results just so we can all kind of see. So it looks like we have a couple Central Illinoisans, some people from Chicago and up north and southern, so a good span across the state. So that's awesome. And then our last poll is just which partner do you best represent? So if you best represent Title I or II with adult ed, or 3 or 4, or if you best represent an LWIA or an other WIOA partner or stakeholder, we would just love to know that so we can kind of gauge where you're at today. And again, feel free to turn your cameras on and unmute yourself whenever we do have those opportunities for discussion and participation and questions, or you can feel free to type those questions in the chat if you don't want to forget them. And I'm happy to help facilitate them during those times. I'll give everyone a couple more seconds to answer this poll, and then we will move on and I will hand it over to Jeff. Okay, looks like we have a lot of Title I and II people, but also some Title III people on as well today. So that's great. Thank you so much for joining and spending your morning with us. We do appreciate you spending your time with us, and I'll hand it off to Jeff and Jamie. If anyone needs anything, any technical assistance, or if you have any questions regarding the the workshop series, feel free to reach out to me via the chat and I will be here. Thank you so much and take it away, Jeff.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you, Kirsten, and thanks everyone for joining today from Illinois and beyond. This, as Kirsten mentioned, is part of a three-part series, and we'll go through the topics of what the subsequent webinars are going to be and the dates of those, but focused on a number of initiatives that we are doing here at World Education around digital resilience and digital equity. This first one is a broader overview of what we'll be talking about and some of our activities and some discussion, and we want this to be more discussion-oriented and open-ended in terms of understanding what your needs are, what your activities are in the
Did he freeze for you, Jamie?
Yes, he did. And so I'm going
Oops.
to take over the share and jump in. Oh, there you are, Jeff. You disappeared
I'm
for a moment.
back. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we're just gonna be talking. So I'm getting a thing that says my connection is unstable.
Jeff, let me share screen if that's okay.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
let's do that, everybody. This is
Sorry.
appropriate for our session. This is a demonstration of digital resilience at work, firsthand. And I'm okay with that because this is what our learners, our practitioners, our customers, our employees have to deal with all the time, right? So let me share screen. Jeff got to say hi. Did you want to finish introducing yourself, Jeff? And then I can jump
Sure.
in.
Yeah, there's a slide after this with us, but I think you can tell who's who. I'm Jeff Goomis with World Education. As I said, am based in Chicago, and I'm a senior technical advisor. My focus in the work at World Education is on technology integration within adult education settings and beyond that, but also with a focus on open education resources and providing high quality teaching resources and learning resources to support effective integration of digital skills and all content areas and subject areas within adult education.
And good morning, everyone. I'm in Maryland. I'm the one who's outside of the state. And it's very nice to meet you. My name is Jamie Harris, and I'm Digital Skills Senior Technical Advisor at the EdTech Center at World Education. I focus a lot on digital literacy and resiliency, as well as immigrant inclusion and integration. Those are two overlaps in my work. Before we go into a little bit of where our work for digital resilience sits, I want to go over the agenda for today. You'll see three things here. It's really important that we look at definitions. We all may hear the term digital literacy, but do we all have the same understanding of that term? We'll explore some resources, and then there's this piece where you're looking at this in your own context. How can you expand and how can you integrate digital literacy skills and resiliency into your context? And I love that poll that showed that a lot of you are Title I, some of you are Title II, and we've got some Title III in the room. So your integration may look differently, and we'll have some time to explore what that looks like. The Digital Resilience in the American Workforce Project is an initiative by the U.S. Department of Education and World Education, where Jeff and I are, in partnership with Jobs for the Future, also known as JFF, and SAFL partners are working together to develop evidence-based, flexible, piloted strategies and resources to help teachers, practitioners, employers, learners, learner workers to develop digital literacy skills and digital resilience. We focus on adult learners. I know Title I can be youth oriented, but some of these resources should apply in your context as well. But we wanted to provide guidance and tools and strategies because we hear this term digital literacy and it's like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And so we're really excited to share out some things today. And we hope by the end of today's session, you have more clear understanding of what it means, and then you'll be excited about joining the other two workshops that are coming. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. Jeff, just say next slide, please, and I'll do that for you.
All right, and you have the Mentimeter poll up as well? Okay, awesome. So thank you. And again, sorry, I'm just gonna move this over here so that I know where I am since I'm not driving. So if Jamie, you can advance. As she mentioned, we are going to be starting with thinking about definitions. And so what I wanted to do is get from you what you believe these terms that we're going to be talking about today and subsequent weeks look like. Now, don't worry about sound. There is no sound in this video. So what I want you to do is just watch the video and consider what's happening here. And then in the chat, I'm going to ask you to identify what skills are being used. What skills? I'm not saying digital skills, I'm just saying skills are being used in the video that you are about to watch. It's real quick. It's like 15 seconds. Okay, so what are the skills that are being used in this particular video that you just saw? I'm not gonna like articulate because I can't actually describe what happens without saying skills. So what did you see? Typing skills, and that can be very different on a phone versus a keyboard. It wasn't until I started this work that I realized a phone keyboard, they're lowercase letters, and on a computer keyboard, they're capital letters. And for someone just learning the English language, that's a big difference. Camera skills, video capturing, and social media skills. What are some of those social media skills that were happening? And then coffee. Someone the other day was like making coffee, and I'm like, an important skill. So video capturing, social media. Anyone want to think through like what the social media is uploading? So uploading a video to a social media site. Editing is something they're editing their post. What other skills are being seen in this? Making a post, just posting something in general. All right, that's great. So these are all things that are being done in this task that we know many of our learners or workers or clients, customers are doing with technology. We know that folks are using social media. So one of our goals now is to think about making connections to learner motivations goals and just what they know how to do and what they need to know how to do, and thinking about how can we bring them along that journey in a way that makes sense and is clearly defined for all of us so that all of the folks who are working with adults and youth in Illinois have some guideposts in terms of where we should be leading folks as it relates to their digital skills and their digital resilience. So now we're going to hop over to, so we're going to hop over to this poll and we're going to consider three terms, digital skills, digital literacy, and digital resilience. And Jamie has this on screen. You can do this Mentimeter by scanning this code. I am going to put the link in the chat if you want to use that to go ahead and launch it. And so the first question in here is to give an example of a digital skill. Now, we just had some in there, so feel free to add what you already said, but just think of any digital skill. Specifically, think of skills that you feel your learners possess or skills that you need your learners to develop. So think of just what are digital skills? Posting on social media, digital writing, which is a majority of our writing. Secure password, writing, and these are just your check. These are the ones. Downloading an app, converting docs to PDF. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Things that you do that relate to digital skills, entering formulas, typing, these are great. We'll give it about 20 to 30 more seconds. Choosing the right social media site. It's like you guys wrote this presentation, actually. Checking the patient portal with the doctor's office or with the school for your student, email structure, QR code. These are excellent. I love these. They're all so relevant to, I think, everyone on this call and obviously our learners as well. So code switching, what I call, so moving between Apple and I'm guessing Microsoft products, yeah, or Google and Microsoft products in terms of the tools that I tend to use on a daily basis. Etiquette. All right, great. Okay, so these are great examples of skills. And digital skills, as defined by UNESCO, are defined as a range of abilities to use digital devices, communication applications, and networks to access and manage information. And if we think about what we just looked at in that video, I think everything that's reflected on this screen was mentioned. Using a social media site, in this case, Facebook. Downloading the Facebook app. Now, what I hear is a lot of folks, they have the apps on their phone, but they're not the ones that actually downloaded the app to their phone. And so that in itself, and knowing how to do that to use tools and get tools that are useful for learners is important. As we see here, using the keyboard, taking a picture or a video, uploading that picture or video to the social media site or other sites, and then sharing that post through social media. So these are all kind of those hard, quote unquote, hard skills, those foundational skills that are very specific, and oftentimes we're teaching them specifically to a task that we want learners to do or a particular software or application that they are using. But these, you've seen that camera icon in other places, you've seen an upload icon in other places, you've seen a share icon in other locations. So those are digital skills. Now, if we go to the next frame, what I want you to, and this is open response, and you can do multiple responses. There's 3 spaces, I believe, but you can do as many as you want. I want you to use a verb to describe what someone who is digitally literate can do with digital tools. So think of verbs that describe what someone can do with digital tools if they are digitally literate. And I always love watching these build. Spread, organize.
Jeff,
And
Inspire is interesting.
I love Inspire.
Yeah.
I am not on social media because I don't love it, but I see the power of it for things like that. This is a word cloud, so if you are seeing something that you feel is really important, you can enter that in, and you can. It seems like communicate is getting larger. See, organize, relate, engage, educate, empathize, and relate, lead, inspire. Love it. Include. I love this notion towards like using technology to bring people in. What a wonderful concept. If only we did more of that. I know we are doing that in our pockets, at least. This is great. Empathize, comprehend. Okay, so yeah, so someone who is digitally literate, these are like, if you're thinking about, these are getting into like Webb's depth of knowledge kind of terms, but it's like, what can I do with technology? So if we go to the next slide to look at the definition, digital literacy is the ability to use ICT, information and communication technologies, to find, evaluate, organize, create, and communicate information. And the disclaimer at the end here, I think, is really important. That requires both the technical skills, so those are those hard skills that we talked about, in the first definition for digital skills and cognitive skills. And this is the American Library Association's definitions. So now we're getting into this added layer of when should I use this tool? So when can I use social media? Which social media platform should I post that to? Should I post this at all? Which is a question that probably, especially in the coming year, we wish more people would employ that question before deciding to post in an election year. But so this gets into more of the cognitive abilities and understanding what the technology is and how I can leverage it to achieve whatever goal it is I'm trying to do, or to just perform a task that I know that I need to do, knowing when, where, and how to use technology effectively. So now let's go to the third term, which is digital resilience. And this is a poll. You can select all that apply. So how would you define digital resilience? Is it to have awareness, skills, agility, and confidence with digital technology? Is it to be or is it to adapt to changing digital skills demands? And again, you can select all that apply, that you feel apply to the term digital resilience. So we'll wait till we have about half of folks in here. All right. So the answer is actually all of these apply to digital resilience, but it's interesting to see which ones come to the forefront. So agility to awareness and agility to have confidence. So that's being resilient. That confidence is always a factor, regardless if it's in a digital environment or any environment. And to be able to adapt to digital skills demands, those are the ones that are emerging. That being able to adapt is really important, because as you and I know, this world is a changing, and we need to be digitally resilient in order to remain feeling confident in our ability to perform the tasks that we do, and being empowered in the use of new tech. All right, so last thing in here, I believe, when we look at digital resilience, it is thinking about how having this awareness and the confidence to be empowered users of new tech. So things like problem solving and upskilling and being aware of the skill deficiencies that I have and knowing how to actually act upon that and do something about it. And again, if we think about the video from the start and resilience around that, we looked at skills, right? The hard skills that are happening in that video. So it was in Facebook, but those very same tasks are things you can do in other applications, so social media applications, but maybe you're using a tool like Canvas or like Moodle within education environment. You have communication within those environments. You might be posting and having discussion threads. So thinking about what to post and when and how, and etiquette was something that was mentioned. Uploading class assignments. So the task is uploading or communicating or sharing or posting. It's the same thing happening there, and it's the same thing happening in career environments. So being able to post things in LinkedIn or connect with others in a tool like LinkedIn for career networking, but then tools like Okta, which is a human resources technology that's used by a lot of companies, and being able to upload information about yourself, because that's used for HR management in a lot of companies. And so these skills transfer, and the things that one has to do transfer in life, education, and career. And so resilient users of technology understand that transfer. And so when they encounter something they have to do with a new technology, they realize that they already are equipped with the skills that are needed in order to do it. And it's a matter of being confident enough to figure out how to do that with new technologies. So that's this spiel. We can go back to the slides. And one of the, oh yeah, sorry. So just in the chat real quickly, because I know we're a little bit behind, can you think of, if you want, or can think of something off the top of your head, an instance where you have demonstrated digital resilience in the past month, either you or your learners or the folks that you work with? All right, we're gonna move on just because I know this is a little bit longer. So just one of the resources that Jamie will be sharing in a moment, amongst a number of different briefs, is one focused on identifying digital skills needs. You can click, Jamie. Sorry. So it looks at the skills that learners have identified. This is the result of a scan of surveys, of interviews, and lots of information gathering around the digital skills that folks need excellence. So thank you, Lacey, for that example of digital resilience, choosing a tool to try to achieve a task that wasn't working by other means. So thinking about ways to actually get to learners appropriately. So this just highlights this brief, the need for learner confidence and agency, and gets into starting to think about how we can define and identify local relevant digital skills that align to the goals of learners, which may be employment or other goals. But we're going to be focusing a lot on employment today and on the third session. And now I will turn it over to Jamie for exploring. Oh, sorry. And then another thing in just the third week, just this last slide, is we're going to be actually introducing a number of different resources. So this is webinar 3 that focus on integrating digital skills into instruction. So a digital skills framework that we are actually launching in 2 weeks. That is a newish framework that provides lots of resources for goal setting, for activities, for vocabulary development, and for skill integration that align to the skills framework. So we're really excited to be able to share that with you in a few weeks.
Thank you, Jeff. So it will be great, Jessica. So we have about 15 more minutes, and what I'd like to do is talk and discuss with you all, leaders of different titles, what all that means for you system-wide, at local sites, with employers, with customers, with learner workers. And so I'm actually going to move forward from this slide because earlier I saw a mention of using technology in the doctor's office. Digital skills and resiliency is necessary for the workplace, life, and careers, as Jeff has already mentioned. And it affects everyone. It affects you, right? It affects me. I was renting a car the other day, and I was like, how do I turn on the windshield wipers? It's just like technology is constantly changing in simple things. And so I want to share with you that we did a landscape report. We reached out through various means to the field to find out what topics were most of interest and to clarify strategies, practices, promising practices, all of that. And we put it in a report. We put it in deep dives, and this may be really helpful for you, not only to clarify what we mean by these 6 areas you see on the screen, but also when you're filling out maybe part of the Digital Equity Act planning comment period. There are some types of engagement that you need to do where you need the language and understanding to be able to respond and comment well. And so we've done the work for you. We have these resources for you, and I'll go over this very quickly. The first is a little bit of what Jeff just shared about the definitions, but it also dives into frameworks. And I'm pointing over here because my screen is over here. So frameworks are really important. If I were to ask all of you, all 20 of the people on the call, how would you organize the development of digital skills and literacy? I'm sure everyone would provide a different organization and a different idea. And some of you may not even know what that should look like. Frameworks come into play by providing an organized structure of different skills or different literacy skills or different ways of looking at a topic, but it's framed in a way that's really helpful. We mentioned the Seattle Digital Equity Initiative framework. Jeff's going to talk about a Bridges framework. There's a Maryland framework. There's North Star. There are a lot of frameworks to help clarify the organization of these skills that are needed for digital literacy. So we talk about digital literacy frameworks in this part of the report. We get into access, which is a major challenge and barrier and hurdle for a lot of individuals, a lot of your customers. Some don't have laptops. Some just use smartphones. Some don't have internet access. And so how can we address these challenges for the system to help the customer by increasing access? And this part of the report helps talk about that and look at that a little bit, different strategies to address that. There's a lot about instructional approaches and practices in this area of the report. We do crowdsource digital skill content and curriculum here. Please know that with the scan, we've reached out and asked and received a list and a lot of items for these areas. We didn't vet them. So if you're looking for number 1, number 2, number 3, you won't see that here, but what you will see is a crowdsourcing of a lot of resources that you can look at and identify what's best for your context. Assessing and validating skills is one part of this report that looks at other ways of assessing, not just a standardized assessment, but there are ways to assess built on the strengths of learners and not approaching it from a deficit mindset only. There are ways to assess and find out where students are, where learners are, where workers are, to then identify the next steps and help them reach their goals and improve in those areas. So there's also a checklist in this portion of our resources that it asks you a question, like, what are you trying to achieve here? Who are you trying to assess? What would you like the outcome to look like? Those questions are asked and they provide resources based on your responses. And lastly, the other section of resources that's in this report and also other resources, as Jeff put in the chat, is professional development. And it says for practitioners, but it could be for employees, as well as staff. Professional development is key. So I wanted to jump into showing you what some of these publications are. What I just showed you is the big report, but we decided to separate them out into brief and deep dives and blogs. So these 4 are the blogs: Digital Resilience at the Frame, the Digital Skills Library, Access and Digital Equity, and Choosing an Assessment. Then we have the full report as mentioned. And then these are the deep dives that focus on the same areas as what's in the report. So it dives a little bit deeper than what's in the report. We also, from the scan, developed PD materials and products. Self-assessment, course units, playbooks, routine activity templates, a digital skills library, digital skills glossary. We will dive into these things in sessions 2 and 3. Why is this important for you? These are resources that are available for you to use with your employees, with your staff, with your customers. Some of them are public facing, like learner facing, customer facing. So in the next couple of workshops, we'll look at what these resources are and help you figure out how to use them and how to maybe implement them system-wide to help with the building of digital resilience. But this is the most important part. And before I jump into that most important part, I want to go back to this Mentimeter and ask you a question. It's the same Mentimeter. And I just went through that so quickly. I'm so sorry, but I really want to get into some discussion. Of these 6 areas, what's most of interest to you? Where would you start? You could put it in the chat or you could put it in Menti. Few more seconds. Okay, so we're going to, oh, I don't know. The first and the second are close. All right, I'm just going to go with the first that's there now. Please know that and it's digital skills. Oh, advancing digital inclusion and equity came to the top. All right. Advancing access and digital equity. And I'm going to put this page in the chat. This is where I am. And I just want to give you a preview of one of the deep dives. It's bigger. All right, so I'm going to scroll a little bit. I apologize for that. Here's our contents: the need to access models and practices to increase device and internet access, increasing access to instruction, ecosystem partnerships, and funding for digital access and inclusion. I'm going to click on ecosystem partnerships. It's one of my favorite parts of this deep dive. It basically says you can't do it alone. I mean, you could try, but it's really hard to do it alone. And so there are ways to collaborate and having an ecosystem to support digital resilience. And there's this graphic here that was created by the Digital Us Coalition, and some models and examples can be downloaded here. So there's additional resources found in this resource. So I did that very quickly because we are now to the part of the presentation, and thank you for your patience with us. We have so much to share and little time, but I want to get to this piece of identifying opportunities for you to integrate digital literacy skills and resilience. I know that when I go to a presentation, I'm like, oh, this is great. And then as soon as I sign out of a session, there's something else to do and something else to consider. And it takes away from my time to reflect and build and decide and plan for what I just learned. So digital skills and resiliency and literacy are important for you, your staff, your customers. I think we already established this. And so I want to look at a few questions, and this is the point of the session where it's conversation. So it's no longer a mentee. There's the chat, and you're able to unmute because this is a meeting session. What is needed for employees, services, and customers? And I want you to think back to when there were COVID shutdowns. What did you have to do? What were some of the challenges, and what solutions did you come up with when we think about digital skills, literacy, and resiliency? So I'm going to stop sharing and invite you to unmute as we talk about this question here that I've just put in the chat.
So I'm happy to share and start off the discussion. So I started this position 2 weeks before the pandemic, and everything we did was in-person professional development. And I was originally hired in my position to just manage our websites for our funders that we host. But then my position skyrocketed into taking lead on all of these professional development sessions, as well as making sure that all of our in-person professional development that we offer at our center, trainings and everything, got integrated into being virtual. And then that switched again whenever the world was flipped upside down, right? But then it turned sideways because it switched again whenever we have everything hybrid. So now we have to do all in person and have some sort of virtual component for pretty much everything that we do here at our center. So that is, I mean, that was like a huge challenge for our whole center, but specifically for my role as well, because it wasn't necessarily what I was hired to do, but then my role just like blew up. And so I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that as well. And so I had to learn a bunch of digital literacy skill sets, like via Zoom, which I know we all had to learn. But then even like live streaming and how live streaming works for like live events and the cameras for that and audio for that. And so my digital literacy skills really expanded because I never had any formal education in for videography or audio training or anything like that. So
And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. I do want to, because we have a lot of discussion and I want to make room for Jeff's part of the discussion. You may not have done it verbally, but I'm hoping that you've just considered when Kirsten was sharing what you had to do when COVID arrived and things shifted immediately, what changes you made and what were the challenges and how you came up with solutions, which really is an element of digital resilience, the solutions that you came up with in response to these challenges. And so now I have post-COVID shutdowns. Did everything remain? Did some things change? What's working? What is still an emergency implementation? What has been analyzed and improved beyond emergency solutions? So what we have seen is a lot of places implemented something out of emergency. And then post-COVID shutdowns, either everything was completely removed and went back to how it was pre-COVID, or the emergency solution remained and was never evaluated and analyzed to see if it's effective for our customers. Or someone spent time analyzing and improving. And so this set of questions is for you to think about which phase and which one of those are you. Or your title or your programming within your title. Have you looked at what's happening? Have you given learners and customers opportunities to develop digital skills, literacy, and resiliency? Excuse me. And have you analyzed what's happening to see if it's effective and made any changes? I was hoping to have more of a verbal discussion, but I do want to turn it over to Jeff for a moment because we have a few moments. This is the beginning of multiple sessions, so we'll make some time for more of this discussion next week when we jump into workshop 2, but this is the beginning of thinking about this and exploring this topic of digital literacy, skills, and resiliency within your title, within workforce, and how we can do better for our customers, our employees, and our staff. Jeff, I'm going to turn it to you and start sharing screen.
I was just finishing typing something just related to me that is probably might be relevant to you. Is we've adopted a lot of new technologies as a non-direct service provider to help us work. They helped us work when we were fully remote, and now we as an organization are also hybrid. But I think some challenges that we have, and this is actually active work that I'm doing now, is we don't necessarily have rules around how we want to use these technologies effectively for communicating, for organizing. And so I think it's something that we all are going to be grappling with over the next few years. So and beyond the next few years, forever. So I just wanted to share, because as Jamie said, we're going to continue this conversation over the next couple of weeks. But as you think about joining, and hopefully you will be joining for all 3 of the webinars, I just wanted to point out some things related to where we are right now in Illinois around Digital Equity Act initiatives, because there is a lot of funding that is going to be made available in the coming years related to integrating digital skills and digital equity into your programming. So these are in the slides that Kirsten shared, and all of these are hyperlinked, so you can click on them. But literally, like starting 2 days ago, it was a maybe. There is activity happening around the BEAD initiative, so Broadband Equity, Access, and Development, to help identify underserved locations within the state and to log those as areas of need for bringing broadband as part of the slightly more than $1.4 billion dollars in funding to support broadband expansion. So the links here are for there's a map that you can go to see locations within your locality and actually nominate them to be part of this challenge. And then there's also a broadband challenge one-pager. One of the resources they have is a speed test. You can actually go in, test your speed, and submit it so that there's good data understanding what are we actually dealing with in real time in terms of access. So next slide, just real quickly in terms of materials. The public comment period for your Digital Equity Act plan is today. We have resources that have been provided to support the public comment period, but this template on the right-hand side is actually one that you can use to start thinking about what it is you are doing around digital equity and how you can start partnering with other organizations and positioning yourself to be able to access the funding around the state digital equity work that's going to be happening starting now. And then finally, the next slide next two slides are just related to priority areas. So this is just highlights of what's in that. So feel free to take a look. And then the following slide is just indicating where we are in this process. So as you think about joining, I just want you to think about what you plan to do or what you have been doing in relation to our I'm going to say our because I live here, our Digital Equity Act efforts. And hopefully that can provide some framing in terms of what you want to get from our next two sessions. So session 2 is next Wednesday. And it is really going to dive deeper into the materials that Jamie highlighted today. Our focus audience for that is folks who are involved in professional development, training providers, and case managers. And then webinar 3, which is actually going to be 2 weeks from today, 3 weeks from today, excuse me, on February 21st, is looking at how we can be integrating digital skills into our different activities. And that's where that slew of resources that I shared in the slide earlier, we'll walk through those and think through how you can use those to define skills goals for your constituents and actually develop those in your training. So we are at time, a little beyond time, but thank you for your time. And I can stick around for the next 10 minutes if there's questions. Hopefully Kirsten can.
Yeah, I can too. And we welcome any questions. Feel free to ask Jeff. And then also, I just want to reiterate that this is recorded, and I did put the link in the beginning for where you can access registering for the other 2 sessions. I can put that again as well. And then I'm also going to put the follow-up survey for today's session specifically. So just today, just the overview in the chat if you would like to take it. It'll also be in the follow-up email you'll receive tomorrow. But if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself. We have a thank you so much. Thanks for making this accessible to out-of-staters, of course. And we hope that you register for the following workshops as they'll be more application-based. Okay, well, if no one has any other questions, I think we'll go ahead and close this out so we can be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much, Jeff and Jamie, for your time presenting this, and we look forward to your future sessions. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.